In the year 1905, a young man stepped down from a freight car in East Orange, New Jersey. He had ridden it because he had no money for a passenger ticket. His clothing was poor. He carried no letter of introduction, no diploma, no reference from any man of standing. He walked to the laboratory of Thomas Edison and told the men there that he had come to go into business with the inventor, not to work for him, to go into business with him as a partner. They might have laughed him into the street. Instead, he was given a job sweeping floors. Now, most men who study that account fasten upon the wrong portion of it. They fasten upon the audacity. They admire the boldness of the request, and they say to themselves, "There is a man who dared," and they feel a pleasant warmth for about 90 seconds, and then they go on living exactly as they lived before. But the audacity is not the lesson. The audacity took one afternoon. The lesson is what followed, because that young man swept those floors for the better part of 5 years. 5 years of ordinary mornings, 5 years of rising in a rented room, in a city where no one knew his name, to perform work that no one considered important, for a man who had not yet noticed him. 5 years in which nothing whatever happened to justify his decision. And then a machine came into that laboratory which Edison's own salesman would not touch. A dictating machine. They considered it unsellable. Edwin Barnes said he would sell it. He did sell it. He sold it so thoroughly that he became its distributor across the nation, and he retired a wealthy man. And the partnership he announced to a room of amused strangers in 1905 became a matter of public record. Here is the question I wish to put before you tonight. Where did that man keep his discipline during those 5 years? In what pocket did he carry it? Because he did not wake each morning and summon it. No man can do that. No man has ever done that. What most men call discipline is not a quality of character at all. It is the residue of a decision that was made once, and thereafter simply defended. He made his decision on a train. Everything after was maintenance. Now, I will not insult you. You cannot install a character in 60 minutes. Any man who tells you otherwise is selling you something, and you have bought that thing before, and you know precisely how it ended. But there is one thing which can be done in 60 minutes. It is the only thing which has ever been done in 60 minutes. It is the taking of a decision so definite, so exact, and so narrow that it removes a question from your life permanently. That is what this hour is for. Look at the clock. Note the hour. You will want to remember it. Let us begin with a fact you have observed 1,000 times and never once examined. Analyze the men and women you know who possess what you call discipline. Do not analyze the ones on platforms. Analyze the ones in your own street. The neighbor who has walked at 6:30 every morning for 9 years. The bookkeeper who has never in her life submitted work late. The old man who has not taken a drink since a Tuesday in 1987 and does not consider this an achievement worth mentioning. Observe them closely. Do they appear to be straining? They do not. They appear, if anything, slightly bored by their own consistency. There is no visible effort in it. And this fact has misled generations of men into a conclusion which is precisely backwards. They conclude that such people were born with a greater supply of some inner substance, a stronger will, a firmer constitution, better wiring. I tell you they were not. They possess no more of that substance than you possess. They simply have fewer decisions to make. That is the whole of it. That is the law, and I will state it plainly so that you may carry it. The disciplined man is not a man who wins the argument every morning. He is a man who is no longer having the argument. You, on the other hand, are having it. You are having it every single day, and you are having it at the worst possible hour, and you are having it against an opponent who knows everything about you. Consider the mechanics of your own morning. The alarm sounds, and in the darkness there occurs an interval, 3 seconds, perhaps 4, in which a negotiation takes place. On the one side stands the man you intend to become. On the other stands a warm room, a tired body, and a voice which is not shouting at you, mind, but reasoning with you. It never shouts. It is far too clever for that. It says, you were up late. One morning changes nothing. Begin properly on Monday, when you are rested and can do it well. And that voice is not lying to you. That is what makes it formidable. Every word of it is true. One morning does change nothing. You were up late. You would perform better rested. You are not being tempted. You are being out-argued. And a man who enters into a negotiation at the moment of his least strength, against a counsel who has studied him since childhood, has already lost the thing before the first word is spoken. The outcome was determined the instant the matter was made negotiable. Let me put a man before you. He is 34 years of age. He works as a draftsman in a firm of moderate size, and he is good at it, and he has been good at it for 11 years. 11 years is a considerable time. It is long enough for a child to be born and to reach the 6th grade. In a drawer of his desk at home, there is a folder. In that folder are the particulars of an evening course in structural engineering. The qualification that would move him from the drawing board to the design office and would, over the remainder of his working life, alter the sum of money he earns by an amount he has calculated more than once, generally late at night. He requested those particulars 11 years ago. Here is how the 11 years were spent. On Sunday evenings, a certain heaviness settles upon him, and out of that heaviness comes a resolve. He opens the folder. He reads the requirements. He works out that if he studies 4 evenings each week, he can sit the first examination within the year. He feels, in that moment, a genuine lightness. And I want you to mark this carefully, because it is the most dangerous sensation available to a man. He feels, on Sunday evening, very nearly the same satisfaction he would feel if he had actually studied. Monday he studies, 40 minutes, and it goes well. Tuesday there is a matter at the office which runs late, and he arrives home at 7, and he tells himself, quite reasonably, that a tired man learns nothing, and that he will make up the time on Wednesday. Wednesday he does not make it up. Thursday he does not open the folder, and does not think of the folder, and something in him is relieved not to have thought of it. By Saturday the resolve has dissolved entirely, and by Sunday evening the heaviness has returned, and the whole apparatus begins again. He has performed this cycle, by my reckoning, upwards of 500 times now. He does not believe he has failed. He believes he is about to begin. In his own mind, he is a man on the point of taking action. He has been on that point since he was 23. He will be on that point at 45. And at 55, he will speak of the folder to a younger man, with a rueful smile, as though it were a piece of weather that happened to him. Analyze yourself for a moment. I do not ask what your folder contains. You know what it contains. You knew before I finished describing him. Something arrived in your mind uninvited within the first 30 seconds of that account, and you pushed it slightly to one side so that you might continue listening comfortably. Bring it back. Now permit me to tell you what those 11 years actually cost him, because the sum is not what he supposes. He supposes the cost is the salary. It is not. The salary is the smallest part of the account. Here is the true cost. Each time a man makes a resolution to himself and then breaks it, he performs an act of instruction upon his own subconscious mind. He does not merely lose the evening. He deposits a proposition, and the proposition is this: my word to myself is not binding. Deposit that proposition once, and nothing occurs. Deposit it 500 times, over 11 years, with a Sunday evening ceremony attached to each deposit, and you have manufactured something. You have manufactured a man who no longer believes his own resolutions at the moment he makes them. And I ask you to consider the position of such a man, because it is a serious position. He can no longer be commanded by himself. He can still be commanded by an employer, by a creditor, by a wife, by a doctor delivering bad news. External authority still moves him, but his own authority over himself has been spent. He has issued too many promissory notes against an empty account, and his own mind has stopped honoring them. This is what men are describing when they say they have no willpower. They have not run out of willpower. They have run out of credit. Here is what is interesting. That same man, that same draftsman, with his 11 years and his dissolved Sundays, will rise at 4 in the morning without complaint if his child is ill. He will not negotiate. He will not consult his fatigue. He will not require inspiration, or a fresh start on Monday, or a better night's sleep. He is not lacking the machinery. The machinery is in perfect order. What he lacks is a matter which is no longer open for discussion. For his child, the question was settled long before the night arrived. It was settled so completely that it never reached the negotiating table. For his own future, the question is reopened every 24 hours and voted upon by a tired man in a dark room. And the tired man votes the same way every time and calls the result his character. It is not his character. It is his procedure, and a procedure can be changed within the hour. Now, I wish to catalog for you the enemies in this business because they are few in number and they have names, and a man who can name a thing can fight it. A man who cannot name it merely suffers from it and calls it a mood. The first is indecision, not wrong decision. Indecision. Observe that the men who have accumulated great fortunes were not distinguished by the correctness of their choices. A number of them were quite spectacularly wrong on occasion. They were distinguished by the speed with which they decided and the slowness with which they reversed. The general run of men do the exact opposite. They deliberate for months and abandon in an afternoon. The second is procrastination, which is the brother of indecision and lives in the same house. Procrastination is not laziness. I want to be clear on this, because men beat themselves with the word lazy, and it accomplishes nothing. The draftsman is not lazy. He works 11-hour days. Procrastination is the habit of substituting the feeling of intention for the fact of action, and it is pleasant. That is why it endures. A man may enjoy his ambition for decades without ever once being obliged to test it against reality. And there is a species of comfort in that which is not available to the man who actually begins and discovers that he is, at first, poor at the thing. The third is the habit of accepting temporary defeat as permanent. A man misses 2 mornings and concludes that he is not the sort of person who does this. He does not say, I have missed 2 mornings. He says, I always do this. And in saying it, he converts an event into an identity, and identities are very difficult to argue with. And the fourth, the one that governs all the others, is what I have long called drifting. The drifter is not a wicked man. He is not idle. He may be extremely busy. Most drifters are. The drifter is simply a man who has never taken one definite decision, and who is therefore obliged to make 10,000 small ones, daily, each on its own merits, each at the moment of maximum fatigue and minimum clarity. He is a ship without a rudder in a busy harbor. He is not standing still. He is moving a great deal. But every current takes him, and every wake from a passing vessel turns him. And at the end of 30 years, he is astonished to find himself where the water put him, and he speaks of luck. Stop here. Really weigh this, because we are approaching the turn. You have known everything I have said so far. Not in these words, perhaps, but you have known it. You have possessed this information for years. You have read it and heard it and agreed with it and nodded at it in the dark, and none of it has moved you 1 inch. Why? Because knowledge is only potential power. It becomes power only when it is organized into a definite plan and directed toward a definite end. A man may accumulate an entire library on the subject of discipline and remain wholly undisciplined, and the library will comfort him because collecting the information feels like doing the thing. It is the Sunday evening sensation again in a more respectable coat. You do not have an information problem. You have never had an information problem. You have an open question problem. So before we go further into the mechanism, and there is a mechanism, and I will lay it bare for you in the part that follows, I am going to ask you to perform the first definite act of this hour. It is small. It will require perhaps 90 seconds. Do not skip it, because everything after depends upon it. Take something to write with, a paper, the back of an envelope, the telephone in your hand. The instrument does not matter, but writing it does, and I will tell you why later. I want you to identify one surrender you performed today. Not this year, not in general, today. One specific moment in the last 16 hours in which you had made an arrangement with yourself and you set it aside. Write down 3 things about it and be exact. First, what the arrangement was. Not I was going to be more productive. That is not an arrangement. That is a weather report. I was going to walk for 20 minutes. I was going to make the telephone call. I was going to stop at 10 o'clock. Second, the hour at which you set it aside. As near as you can recall it. 6:30, 9:40. Noted. Third, and this is the one men skip, so do not skip it. The exact reasoning your mind offered you at that moment. Word for word if you can manage it. Not what you think of the reasoning now, sitting here, judging it from a comfortable distance. What it actually said to you at the moment it was persuading you. Write it. Now look at what you have written. That sentence, that specific, ordinary, entirely reasonable sentence is your opponent. Not laziness, not weakness, not some deficiency handed to you at birth. That sentence. You have just done something the draftsman never did in 11 years. You have taken your adversary out of the darkness where it operates, where it is powerful precisely because it is never examined, and you have put it on a piece of paper in daylight where it can be looked at. Read it once more. Notice how thin it is. Notice that it would not survive 10 seconds of scrutiny from any other person on earth, and that you have surrendered to it without protest for years. Keep that paper in your hand. We will use it, because now I am going to show you exactly why that sentence wins and what is actually occurring inside a man in that 3-second interval. And once you see the mechanism, you cannot unsee it. You are holding a sentence on a piece of paper. Now I am going to explain to you why that sentence has defeated you for years. And I want you to understand at the outset that the explanation is not going to flatter you and it is not going to insult you. It is going to be mechanical, because this is a mechanical business. There is a machine operating inside you. It operates according to laws, and it does not care in the slightest what you intend. Begin here. The subconscious mind, and I use the term plainly, without mystery, does not weigh arguments. It accepts. It accepts whatever is presented to it repeatedly, and it accepts most rapidly whatever is presented to it with strong feeling attached. It does not examine the credentials of an idea. It does not ask whether the idea is good for you. It is soil, and soil does not inquire into the character of a seed. It grows what is planted. Plant nothing deliberately, and it will grow whatever the wind brings. Now consider what you have been planting. Every arrangement you make with yourself and then set aside is a seed, and it goes into the soil with feeling attached. That small, private wince, the one that lasts perhaps a second and a half before you distract yourself out of it. That wince is what fixes it. That is the fertilizer. And what grows from it is not laziness. What grows from it is a settled conviction, held below the level of argument, that you are a man whose statements about his own future conduct are unreliable. I said earlier that you have not run out of willpower. You have run out of credit. Let me now be exact about that, because it is the hinge of everything. You maintain an account with yourself. Every promise kept is a deposit. Every promise broken is a withdrawal. And like any bank, this one does not care about your reasons. The teller does not ask why. It records the transaction. Now, a man with a healthy balance in that account can make a resolution at 11 at night and find it still standing at 6 in the morning, because his own word carries weight with him. He has years of settled transactions behind it. When he says, "I will rise at 6, some part of him replies, yes, he does that, and the matter is closed before it opens. A man whose account is overdrawn makes the identical resolution in the identical words with identical sincerity, and nothing happens. It does not carry. Some part of him has already priced it. We have heard this before. And here is the cruelty of it, and I want you to sit with this for a moment. The overdrawn man is not less sincere. He is frequently more sincere. He wants it more because he has wanted it longer, and he has gone without it longer. The wanting is not the currency. The wanting was never the currency. Which brings us to the question that undoes most men. Why does the surrender win? Set aside your opinion of yourself and look at it as a matter of engineering. In that 3-second interval, 2 courses are available. One of them wins nearly every time. Why? The usual answer is that it is easier. That answer is worthless because it explains nothing. Many things are easier and men do them anyway. Men do difficult things all day long. Here is the actual answer, and it is the part which is seldom spoken of. You are already addicted. You are not a man lacking an addiction to discipline. You are a man in possession of a superior one. You are addicted to relief. Examine the transaction honestly. At 6:30 in the morning, in that dark room, the surrender pays you immediately. Within 1 second of the decision, you receive an unmistakable, physical, entirely reliable reward. The tension goes out of your body. The argument stops. The warmth returns. It never fails to arrive. It arrives on time, in full, every single occasion, for every man, regardless of merit. And what does the other course pay you? What does rising pay you in that same second? Nothing. It pays you cold air. It pays you the exact opposite of relief. And its actual reward, the health, the qualification, the altered life, is scheduled for delivery in approximately 4 years, is not guaranteed, cannot be inspected and depends upon 900 further mornings identical to this one. So understand what you have been doing. You have been asking a man to choose between a certain reward now and an uncertain reward in 4 years, and then calling him weak when he chooses as every living creature has always chosen. He is not weak. The trade was badly constructed. You have been losing a rigged contest and drawing conclusions about your character from the result. Now I will tell you the thing this hour exists to tell you. If you retain nothing else, retain this. The entire task, the whole of it, is to move the reward forward. Not to become stronger, not to want it more, not to find a better reason, or a photograph on the wall, or a deadline, or a man to shame you. Those are all attempts to make the 4-year payment feel closer, and they fail, and they have always failed, and they will fail for you again, because feelings cannot be sustained by decree. You must arrange matters so that the keeping of the promise pays you inside the same minute in which you keep it. And here is the fact which makes this possible, and it is the most useful fact I know about human beings. The mind will pay out relief for a promise kept just as readily as it pays out relief for a promise broken, provided the promise was small enough to be certain of and specific enough to be verified. That is the whole mechanism. Read it again if you have it before you. Because what actually occurs when a man keeps his word to himself is not a small thing. It is a deposit, and the deposit carries interest, and the interest is a sensation, the sensation of self-command. It is quiet. It is not dramatic. But any man who has felt it will tell you it is among the most agreeable things available to a human being, and that it does not resemble pride and does not require an audience. That is the addiction spoken of in the title of this address. You do not become addicted to hardship. No sane man becomes addicted to hardship. You become addicted to the sensation of being a person whose word is good. And that sensation is available to you within the next 60 seconds, provided you construct a promise small enough that you cannot fail to keep it. The draftsman with the folder was attempting to earn that sensation with a 4-evening-per-week engineering course. He never once collected. 11 years, 500 resolutions, and he never collected a single payment. He needed 10 minutes. He would have collected on the first night. Let me put 2 people before you so that you may see the law operating in ordinary life rather than in a laboratory. The first is a woman of 41, an administrator in a hospital, with 2 children and a husband who works irregular hours. At 37, she determined to obtain a professional certification which required, by her own estimate, some 600 hours of study. Now, she had made this determination twice before, in the grand manner, and both attempts had died inside a fortnight. On the 3rd occasion, she did something different, and it appeared, to everyone who observed it, almost comically insufficient. She resolved to sit at her kitchen table at 10 minutes before 6 each morning and study for 10 minutes. 10, not an hour. And when her sister told her that 10 minutes was not serious, she agreed that it was not serious, and she did it anyway. But note the second thing she did, because this is the part that mattered. On the wall beside the table, she hung a paper calendar, and each morning, when the 10 minutes concluded, she drew a single pencil stroke through the date. That pencil stroke is not decoration. That pencil stroke is the payment. It arrived within 1 second of the act. It was certain. It was visible. And by the end of the 3rd week, there was a row of them. A physical, undeniable object, which stated, in a language the subconscious understands perfectly, this is a person who does what she says. Within 2 months, the 10 minutes had become 25, without decision, without struggle, and without any resolution whatsoever. Because once a man is at the table, the difficulty is behind him. The difficulty was never the studying, it was the sitting down. She passed her examinations in the spring of the 4th year. She has told people since that the discipline was the easy part, and they have not believed her. She was telling the exact truth. By the 8th week, she was not spending willpower. She was collecting interest. Now the 2nd. And I want you to watch this one closely, because it is more common, and it is the one you have lived. A man of 38. He has had a bad year. Nothing catastrophic, simply the accumulated evidence of drift. And one Sunday in January, he sits down and declares war upon himself. He will rise at 5. He will be at the gymnasium by 5:30. He will take no sugar. He will read for 1 hour each evening. He will make 10 telephone calls a day for his business. All of it commences Monday. And here is what I want you to notice above all. On that Sunday evening, he feels magnificent, better than he has felt in a year. He sleeps well. Monday, he executes it entirely. Tuesday, entirely. By Thursday, he is running on 4 hours of sleep and considerable excitement, and the excitement is doing the work. And excitement is a fuel which burns hot and empties fast. Day 9, he misses the gymnasium. Day 10, he misses it again, and mark this, he now also abandons the reading and the telephone calls and takes sugar in his coffee. Why? Nothing has happened to the reading. The reading was untouched, but he was not maintaining 5 disciplines. He was maintaining one identity, a man who has turned things around. And when the identity took a wound, the entire structure came down with it, because it was never 5 things. It was one thing wearing 5 coats. Day 11, he does not think about it. And now the accounting. He is not back where he started. He is behind where he started, because he has just made the largest withdrawal of his life. Not one broken promise. 5, kept for 11 days and then abandoned publicly enough that his wife noticed. And he has deposited into himself a proposition far more damaging than any he held in December. Even when I try properly, with everything I have, it collapses. Next January, he will be harder to move than he is tonight. And the January after, harder still. This is how a man of 38 becomes a man of 55 who speaks of his folder with a rueful smile. The grand resolve is not braver than the small one. It is more dangerous. It stakes the entire account on a single hand. But here is the part which changes everything, and it is the part nobody will say to you plainly, "So I shall." You know all of this already, in some measure. And you have known, for some considerable time, that 10 minutes would work. It is not a subtle idea. It has been said to you before. So why have you not done 10 minutes? Not 4 evenings a week, 10 minutes. Why has a grown man, in full possession of his faculties, who can operate machinery and raise children and hold employment, not managed 10 minutes across 11 years? Because. And I ask you to receive this without defending yourself for the space of 30 seconds. The small discipline is more frightening than the large one. The large resolution is safe. It is safe precisely because it will fail, and everyone concerned knows it will fail, and the failure explains nothing about you. It was too much. Conditions were poor. Anyone would have failed at that. But 10 minutes cannot fail on account of its size. If you set 10 minutes and do not do it, the excuses are gone. There is no fatigue sufficient to explain 10 minutes. There is no schedule crowded enough. If you fail at 10 minutes, you have learned something about yourself which cannot be argued with, and you would rather not learn it. So you protect yourself. You aim at the impossible thing, because a man who is aiming at the impossible thing is not yet a man who has been measured. This is fear of criticism, and it is the most expensive of all the fears, and it does not require another person to operate. It runs perfectly well inside a single skull. It is the fear that if you begin, honestly and in the open, you will be revealed as ordinary. And so long as you do not begin, you may remain a man of unlimited potential. Unbegun, you are still the draftsman who could have been an engineer, and there is a great deal of comfort in that, and men have gone to their graves warmed by it. The instant you begin, you become a man of measurable ability. You convert a fantasy into a figure. And the figure will be modest at first, because everything is modest at first. Edison's first 1,000 experiments produced no lamp, only 1,000 documented facts about what would not carry a current. And he continued, and the continuing is the entire story. Consider 2 brothers in Dayton, Ohio, who repaired bicycles for a living. They possessed no university training, no government appropriation, and no standing among the scientific men of their day, while Professor Langley in Washington possessed all 3. In the autumn of 1901, the brothers came home from the coast defeated, having found that the published tables of air pressure upon which they had relied were wrong. Now, most men, having discovered that the authorities were wrong, would have taken that as the end of the matter and the perfect excuse. We were misled by the experts. They built a wind tunnel in their shop, roughly 6 feet of it. And through that autumn and winter, they tested some 200 model wing surfaces, one after another, in a bicycle shop, recording results in notebooks, in a season during which nothing flew and no one applauded, and there was nothing whatever to show any visitor. That is the entire substance of what men later called genius. It was an organized, tedious, repetitive procedure carried out in a small room by two men who had removed the question of whether to continue. The question was closed. What remained was only the work. So let us gather what we now have, and then I will give you the practice, and I mean to give it to you exactly, so that you may begin before this hour concludes. The mind is soil, and it grows what is repeatedly planted, and it does not consult you. Every kept promise is a deposit, and every broken one a withdrawal, and your present difficulty is not weakness, but an overdrawn account. The surrender wins because it pays instantly, and certainly, while your ambition pays late and doubtfully, and no creature alive has ever chosen otherwise. Therefore, the task is not to become stronger. It is to construct a promise small enough that you are certain to keep it, and to arrange an immediate, visible payment upon the keeping of it, so that the deposits begin, and the account rises, and your own word regains its weight with you. And when your word regains its weight, the 3-second negotiation does not get won. It stops occurring. That is the addiction. It is not an addiction to suffering. It is the plain, quiet, daily pleasure of being a man who can be relied upon, first by himself, and afterward, inevitably, by everyone else. Now look again at that sentence you wrote down. We are going to make it useless. Here, then, is what you are to do. I shall give it to you in 6 parts, and I shall be exact, because vague instruction is the same thing as no instruction, and I have no interest in sending you away with a pleasant feeling. First, you will choose one thing. 1, not 5, not 3, 1. I know what you are doing at this moment, because every man does it. You are thinking that you could reasonably manage 2, since one of them is quite easy. That thought is the man of 38 speaking. That is the January voice, and it wears the costume of ambition, and it will cost you the year. 1 second, you will make it small enough that you cannot fail. Here is the test, and apply it honestly. Ask yourself, could I perform this on my worst day? On 4 hours of sleep, in poor spirits, with the house in disorder, and bad news in the post? Could I still perform it? If there is any hesitation in your answer, cut it in half. Then apply the test again. Keep cutting until the thing appears almost embarrassing. 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 page, 1 telephone call, 200 paces. If it seems too small to be worth doing, you have very likely arrived at the correct size. You are not building the skill this month. You are rebuilding the credit. The skill will come afterward, and it will come rapidly, and it will come without effort. But not 1 hour of it is available to a man whose word carries no weight with himself. Third, you will make it exact. Not I will read more. That is a wish, and wishes cannot be verified, and anything which cannot be verified cannot pay you. An exact promise has 3 parts: what, when, and where. 1 page of that book, at 9:30 in the evening, in the chair by the window. 20 minutes of walking, at 7, from my own front door. Understand why this matters. Vagueness is not innocent. Vagueness is the negotiating room. A vague promise can be adjusted at the moment of performance, and it will be, by a tired man, in his own favor every time. An exact promise has no room in it. It is either kept or it is not, and the tired man cannot renegotiate a thing which has no terms left to argue. Fourth, you will arrange the payment. The instant the thing is done, you will make a mark, a stroke on a paper calendar hung where you will see it, a cross in a pocket notebook. It must be physical. It must be visible, and it must occur within seconds of the act. Do not tell me this is childish. Of course it is childish. The subconscious mind is not a scholar and cannot be reasoned with. It responds to repetition, to feeling, and to evidence it can see. That row of marks is evidence, and it accumulates. And by the 3rd week, you will find that you are unwilling to break the row. And on that day, the row will have begun doing your work for you. 5th, you will write the promise, and you will read it aloud. I told you earlier that I would explain why the writing matters. Here is the reason. A thought is a liquid. It takes the shape of whatever vessel the hour provides. Kept in the head, your promise will quietly reshape itself as the day proceeds, until by evening it has become something you have already very nearly done. Written, it cannot do this. Ink does not accommodate you. When you return to the paper at 10 at night, the paper says exactly what it said at 7 in the morning. And the distance between the two is not a feeling. It is a fact you must look at, and you will read it aloud, morning and night, in your own voice. Not because there is magic in the sound, but because the mind plants what is repeated and what is felt, and a thing spoken aloud carries feeling into the soil in a way that a thing merely glanced at never does. 30 seconds, twice daily. Men have built fortunes on less. Sixth, the rule for the day you miss. You will miss. I am not going to pretend otherwise. A teacher who promises you an unbroken record is preparing you to quit on the first Tuesday you fail. So here is the rule, and it is the most important of the 6. Never twice. One miss is an event. It means nothing whatever. It happened, it is recorded, the row resumes tomorrow. 2 misses is an identity. 2 misses is where the man says, I always do this, and converts a Tuesday into a character, and the character into 11 years. So the missed day is not the danger. The missed day has never been the danger. The danger is the day after the missed day, and that is the one you must defend as though everything depended upon it, because everything does. Now let me meet the objections honestly, because you have 3 of them, and I would rather answer them here than leave them to ambush you on Thursday. 10 minutes will not get me where I need to go. Correct. It will not. 10 minutes will not make you an engineer, and I have not claimed that it would. But observe what actually occurs. Nobody in the history of the world has sat down for 10 minutes of honest work and stood up at exactly 10 minutes. The difficulty is never in the doing. The difficulty is entirely in the sitting down, and the 10-minute promise is not a study plan. It is a device for getting a man into the chair while the argument is still too small to be worth having. The woman at the kitchen table was at 25 minutes inside 2 months, and she never once decided to increase it. I have done this before, and it did not last. You have done something before. You have not done this. What you did before was the grand resolve, staked on excitement, with the payment scheduled for 4 years hence and no deposit collected in the interval. It failed for structural reasons, not moral ones. You were not weak. The trade was badly constructed, and you have been drawing conclusions about your character from the collapse of a poorly built thing. I feel excellent right now, and I want to begin with more. I know you do. That feeling is precisely the sensation the draftsman had on 500 Sunday evenings, and I would have you regard it with suspicion rather than gratitude. Enthusiasm is not the fuel. Enthusiasm is what carries a man for 9 days and abandons him on the 10th. For 30 days, you will not increase the promise, not when you feel capable, especially not when you feel capable. If you find you have surplus, spend it on doing the thing well. But the promise itself remains where you set it, because you are not building a habit this month. You are building a reputation with yourself, and reputations are built by boring reliability and destroyed by inconsistent brilliance. Look now at that sentence you wrote in the first part of this hour. The reasoning your mind offered you at the moment it persuaded you. Read it once more. I was too tired. There was no point starting so late. It would have been half-hearted anyway. I will do it properly tomorrow. Notice something. Every one of those objections is an objection to the size of the thing. Every single one. They are all arguments about a large task. None of them survives 10 minutes. There is no fatigue on this earth which can defend itself against 10 minutes. The sentence does not become weaker. It becomes irrelevant because it was built to defeat an hour, and you are no longer offering it an hour. That is what I meant when I said we would make it useless. You are not going to out-argue that voice. No man ever has. You are going to hand it a proposition so small that it has nothing to say. Return with me to the freight car. That young man arrived in New Jersey with no money and no qualification and made an announcement which any sensible person would have called absurd. And I said to you at the beginning that men fasten on the audacity, and that the audacity is not the lesson. Here is the lesson. On the day he made his decision, the question of whether he would go into business with Edison was closed. Not likely, not hoped for, closed. And because it was closed, the 5 years of sweeping were not 5 years of struggle. They were merely the terms. He was not deciding each morning whether to continue. There was nothing left to decide. He was only doing the work that a closed question requires. That is the difference between him and the man with the folder. It was never courage. It was never talent. One man's question was settled, and the other man's question was reopened every 24 hours and voted upon by a tired man in a dark room. So take this with you, and let it be the whole of the hour reduced to one line. Discipline is not the strength to win the argument. It is the decision that closes it. And the account which permits you to close it is not built by great acts. It is built by small promises kept in tedious succession until your own word recovers its weight. Because a man who cannot be trusted by himself cannot be commanded by himself, and a man who can be needs no commanding at all. Now, before you sleep tonight, and I mean tonight, not tomorrow, because tomorrow is the word which has emptied more lives than any other in the language. You will do this. Take a clean sheet of paper, write one sentence in this form. Beginning today, I will, in, every day for 30 days. Sign it. Write the date beside your name. Then read it aloud, once, in your own voice. And then. And this is the part which matters more than all the rest. Perform it once before you sleep, tonight. Even if the hour is wrong, even if it is 1 minute of it, perform it and make your first mark and let the account open before this day is out. Because a man who writes a resolution and begins tomorrow has made his 501st Sunday evening resolve. But a man who writes it and performs it within the hour has done something he has not done in years. He has made his word good. Look at the clock. Note the hour, as I told you to note it at the beginning. You are the same person you were 60 minutes ago. Nothing has been installed in you. No character has been acquired. But the question can be closed tonight. It takes 1 minute and one mark, and it does not require that you feel any particular way about it. Do not wait until you are the sort of person who does this. Make the mark, and the person follows.